Bar and Lounge for the best clubs in town. Try all 10 varieties of upside margaritas or old fashions and take home a free souvenir glass. Grab the whole crew and pair it with taco night on Mondays or whiskey Wednesdays. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake. There are so many realtors in Lincoln and Omaha, but don't get overwhelmed by all the no-names, plus all the different companies. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Real Estate is your go-to option, whether buying or selling residential, luxury, leasing, investment properties, or commercial property, small or large. Ben's team offers decades of experience, unbeatable customer service, and promises to fully protect your interests throughout the entire transaction. Call 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of BHHS Ambassador Real Estate.
Welcome into the post-game post-up. Nebraska basketball just finished up another game. Hustle down to the block and get position.
Shot clock to 7. Hoiberg missed. Got his own rebound. Right back up. Missed it.
And there he is. Garcia. How big has he been down the stretch for this Nebraska ball club?
10 points all in the second half. Now the lead back to 3.
Join 93.7 The Ticket to break down the best players and key moments from today's action.
Sanford a couple of steps from behind the line. And now Lawrence from the corner. He hits. And another eruption from all the red and Lincoln.
Not even close.
Now Creighton has not been able to hit anything. 0 for 8 from distance. Prager hits some space. He connects.
Post-game coverage of Nebraska basketball on The Ticket is sponsored by Union Bank and Trust, the Lincoln Airport, Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services, and John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electrical.
Here we gotta go.
Down to 5. Hoiberg kicks it out. Lawrence for the win.
It's the post-game post-up on 93.7 The Ticket.
That's right. Welcome in, Nebraska men's basketball post-game, coming at you live, 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Streaming worldwide, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as here locally on Allo Channel 961. A show by the people, for the people, 402-464-5685. If you have any thoughts on Nebraska men's basketball wrapping up officially an 80-68 win over the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Austin Orman and Nick Wyman with you over the course of the next hour and change. Nebraska back to its winning ways. Huskers now 21-2 on the year. The midweek bye treats the Huskers well. 4 players in double figures for Nebraska, paced by Rink Mast's 26 points. Nick Wyman, I believe it's okay to say Rink Mast might actually be back now.
The midweek break could not come at a better time. You couldn't have scripted it any better. He's had, sluggish start to the last couple weeks due to just how play has been. He had a sluggish game against Illinois, didn't make a shot until about the end of the game when it was kind of out of reach. He obviously had the emergency rush with the dehydration and whatnot. Gets back and attempts 20 shots, 11 made shots, 26 points. It was the Rink Mast is back kind of game, and Nebraska needed that in some shape or fashion from him. And we've been waiting for it. It's not like he's been playing bad. It was just a matter of if and when he was going to kind of showcase what we saw at the beginning of the season. And now you saw it, and they kind of put it together. And that midweek, no midweek game kind of came at the right point for everybody to kind of get back into the routine and get back in the win column. And that is what Nebraska did here in an 80-68 win over the Scarlet Knights.
Old Dad 34, if Nebraska makes more layups, they would have won by 20 or more, in his opinion. We can actually go ahead and check out some specialty stats. It says, according to the official stats that Rutgers was keeping, that Nebraska was 12 of 20 at the rim. And I would believe that. I might have guessed they were a little bit better than 60% at the rim. But Rutgers, is known for blocking shots. They will go after that. They'll chase that. And on the day, Rutgers, I believe, was officially credited with 4 blocks, 3 of them from Bryce Dortch, and then one of them from Caden Powers. So that's not a surprise. When you go up to Rutgers, they're going to hunt the block shots. They want to pin it off the backboard and use that to catapult their fast break, such as it is. But, Nick, I thought for the most part, the fact that Nebraska was credited with attempting 20 layups, you see, when this offense is really clicking, when it's whirring, what it can look like, because they had a few that they got downhill off the bounce, but it was like normal for Nebraska. It wasn't first sight. It wasn't driving into the teeth of the defense. And, despite Rutgers blocking 4 shots, you see the difference between what an Illinois or a Michigan defense looks like. And even, a tough, sturdy Rutgers defense, that's a program that likes to hang its hat on that end. When there's not those 1 or 2 huge rim deterrents out there, and when Rink Mass has the full attention of a defense, that is how Nebraska is going to get to the rim 20 times.
And that's what they did. And they were able to do that. And Rink Mass being able to set the tone early. We talked about the 26 points. They weren't just garbage time points. He was able to set the tone for the offense. Yeah. And being able to do that when obviously a lot of attention is going to be on Price Sanford, obviously on Sam Hoiberg, on Jamarcus Lawrence, Braden Frager off the bench. But Rink Mass was able to take control of the game and get 20 shots up. And he was able to go and do that. And that is what helped Nebraska come out to a early lead during that deficit. So if you're watching on Allo, Facebook, Allo, it'll be coming up here in a second. That is just due to, we had a show beforehand and we're doing a start before the top of the hour. That should be coming up here in a second. But yes, Austin, that is why Nebraska was able to take control and be able to come out right on top.
Yeah, by 12 points. And Cupsker says, can't be that sloppy down the end. Better teams could beat Nebraska. Other than that, great movement, clean game. Go ahead and bring on Purdue. Yeah, I mean, a couple silly turnovers there at the end that led to runouts and fouls that Nebraska allowed. But, we've seen that a couple times from Nebraska. I think the Washington game is another one where it'll, end up with a, 10 to 12 point margin. But overall, that was a game that Nebraska, for the most part, Nick, especially there when they took that 14-point lead into halftime, that's really where it stayed. Rutgers got it to 13, was as close as they were until the very end. And that was one of the things that I was going to bring up, is that Nebraska never had that killer put the game away run in the second half. They did it again kind of towards the middle end of the first half. And then, they come out, they hit a couple threes early on, Price Sanford, especially there early in that second half. But Rutgers matched them. This isn't a great shooting Rutgers team. Scarlet Knights found a way to put the ball in the basket and kind of keep pace with Nebraska, not let the Huskers pull away in that opening segment. Let's go ahead and pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to Nebraska men's basketball postgame on 93.7 The Ticket.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Austin Norman, Nick Wyman with you. 80-68, Nebraska wins. And that's one of the things that I had written down, Nick, is that Nebraska did a good job, I think, of just keeping Rutgers at arm's length. Listening to the Big Ten Network broadcast, you could tell that the crowd was getting into it a little bit, and the announcers were like, okay, well, there's a stop. Rutgers got a score, and there's another stop. Okay, here's a chance for Rutgers to really cut into that momentum, cut into that deficit, get it down to 12, get it down to 10. Can they fight back and get it to single digits with 7 or 8 minutes to play? Nebraska didn't let him do that. Nebraska, I thought, did a good job pretty much all day of contesting shots. Sure, Rutgers got a few open threes, especially when Zerno got going there early in the second half to match Nebraska. But for the most part, I thought Nebraska's defense was locked in, and that's what I think kept them in it, that they could afford maybe a little bit of sloppiness, especially there at the end against Rutgers press. Nebraska just did get a little sped up. That's the point of the press. Not something we see a lot from Nebraska. Really, the only time we've seen it is at the end of these games that Nebraska's, had in the bag, been up by 16 to 20 points for the most part. And no, you don't want to give up those points at the end. Not going to help the old analytical case for a 2 seed if that's what you're gunning for. But at the end of the day, it's essentially no harm, no foul.
Yep. And if you're watching on Allo Channel 961, we are now up there. That was due to just cutting into programming due to the Husker game being over before the top of the hour. But we are up there as you're watching also on Facebook, X, YouTube, or as mentioned, Allo Channel 961. We'd love to hear from you. We will keep going until you guys keep chiming in. You guys are pretty good about chiming in on these post-game shows. Austin was reading the text as well. Cubster says, can't be that sloppy down the stretch at the end. I mean, at the end of the game, the Nebraska's up, multiple possessions. They've been able to handle business from the get-go. Tristan and me were watching beforehand. Nebraska, it reminded me kind of the Washington game. They were
in some ways, sure.
They were able to hang around, and Nebraska used a little bit of a run, and we talked about the kill shot, obviously, the kill shot statistic that Tristan loves to bring up. You guys have a little bit of a saying with that. But they were just able to kind of put together a run, and that's kind of what put the game away. And Nebraska was able to just hold on from that. And that is what Nebraska has been able to do. And obviously just get right game after 2 tough losses, not bad losses. You play 2 teams, Michigan, who has obviously been ranked top 5 all year. And you have Illinois, who's probably the hottest team in the sport in general. And they'll be playing tonight against Michigan State. this is just a get right game, and then you turn your attention to the next big opportunity that's coming up in the Purdue Boilermakers.
So let's go ahead and go to YouTube. We have Radman, who is commenting on stream, talking about a 2 seed, 2 exclamation points, and 4 question marks. I see. Please, this team will be a 4 seed at best. They will end the regular season 26-5 or so following the Big Ten tournament. They lack size, depth, poor rebounding, and few free throws. I'm going to push back on pretty much everything you said there, Radman, and we'll do this in reverse order. Because the thing you're most correct about is that, no, Nebraska doesn't shoot many free throws. In fact, Nebraska is 352nd out of 300, and I believe 65 teams in Division I in terms of the number of free throws they shoot. You are correct about that. They don't shoot that many of them. You know, every team would like to get to the free throw line more, but for Nebraska, some of that is by design. It's the way that they play. I will tell you, Nebraska is a pretty good free throw shooting team, though. They knock them down, certainly at an acceptable clip. The official percentage for Nebraska with this game having gone final, when Nebraska does get to the free throw line, they shoot it at over 76%, which you might say, okay, that's just okay. That's 37th nationally as a team. And when you look just in the Big Ten, in conference games, Nebraska is shooting 82% at the free throw line, and that leads the conference. Right now, the issue I will grant you is that no, Nebraska doesn't get there very often. They're 18th in the Big Ten in terms of the numbers of free throws that they shoot. But the rebounding, Nick, has really improved for Nebraska. Sure, they'll give some up, but what team doesn't? Nebraska is certainly much better rebounding now than they have been in Fred Hoiberg's time. In fact, according to this, their defensive rebound rate is 27.2%, which is 44th in the country. That's good enough for this Nebraska team, who's probably not going to dominate many teams on the glass. But if Nebraska can play teams to draws, or you know, today they lost it by 1. That really happened down the stretch when Nebraska went the final 4 minutes without a field goal, put some points up at the free throw line. But Nebraska was ahead in the rebound margin for most of the game. They matched Rutgers in offensive rebounds and was only 1 point behind when you look at the second chance points. So rebounding is a factor for this team, but not in the way that you would think, right? Nebraska is not a team that needs to or has to dominate the glass, especially on the offensive end. Nebraska is not going to chase very many of its misses. So if Nebraska is adequate to good on the defensive glass, that's good enough. You know, that's how Nebraska wants to play.
And they're 21-2 for reasons. You know, they are able to play complementary basketball and be able to do that. Yes, they lost the rebounding battle by, what'd you say?
By 34-33, but even in offensive rebounds,
they were still able to pretty much single-handedly win the game.
It was comfortable.
It was a comfortable, 12-point win on the road in Piscataway. Obviously, that is quite the trip from Lincoln, and they were able to handle business. And that's a win is a win in the Big Ten Conference, and you'll take that any given day of the week.
Let me get to the other part of that comment then from Radman. They lack size and depth. I just think that's patently not true. It's been a thing for Fred Hoiberg and his staff over the last few years to get bigger, and he's always been willing to play the guys that are capable players, right? Cale Jacobson the last couple of years has been the 10th guy in a 9-man rotation, the 11th man in a 10-man rotation, what have you. He's getting his chance, and he's playing pretty darn well. Braden Frager continues to be a revelation for this team. Not the same efficiency out of him today, just 2 out of 10, including 0 of 5 from 3, but he played his role. I thought Braden Frager certainly did his job. The one thing that troubles me a little bit when it comes to the depth, Nick, is we know that Ugnius Druževičius is going to be out, most likely shutting it down per his head coach. But number 2, the Jared Garcia disappearance. You saw Justin Bolus at the end of the game. You didn't see Jared Garcia, even just for that final minute, really going back to that Minnesota game where we thought Jared Garcia was going to have, a bigger role than he did. He played in the first half, wasn't there in the second. I think he got on the court a little bit against Michigan, and that was that. Didn't see the court against Illinois, even though that was the best game that he had. And then today, doesn't see the floor again. You can talk me into Nebraska's front court maybe being a little thin, but where I would even, push back on that is you can play Braden Frager at the 4. Cale Jacobson has played all 5 positions defensively for Nebraska at different points in his career. I mean, those 2 guys combined for 6 rebounds today. You can also, if you want to have the guards on the floor like Nebraska did, they were essentially running some combination of Price Sanford or Cale Jacobson at the 4 offensively. So, no, Nebraska's not the biggest team, but Nebraska's big enough against 95% of the teams. Right. It was exposed a little bit against Illinois and Michigan that Nebraska is not freakishly gargantuan
Yes.
like those two teams, but Nebraska made a concerted effort to get bigger, to get stronger across the board. And I think that's really paid dividends for the Huskers here really the last 3 years under Fred Hoiberg.
And you mentioned Jared Garcia. Obviously he's kind of he was one of the guys in Nebraska looked at as, hey, this guy's going to be the guy who is going to be one of those role players who comes off the bench. You mentioned kind of the disappearance, played 10 minutes against Oregon, scored 5 points. Northwestern, 1 minute, didn't score any points. Washington played just kind of the Oregon game, 11 minutes, 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota played 6 minutes, no points. And he hasn't played since that Michigan game. That Michigan game played 10 minutes, no shots taken at all during that stretch. So you're relying kind of on a Jacobson-Frager hybrid as your bench. Obviously, Oogie's out. Curtis was out today. So you have to try to find some kind of more depth because I don't know. 7-man rotation, you can kind of get away with it. And
so 7's fine. I think 7 or 8 is the sweet spot that most coaches would like to be at. You look at Frager had 22 minutes today. Cale Jacobson played 26. Bearcay was sub 20. He was at 18 minutes. And of those 18, actually 9 came in both halves. Nebraska has been so good, Nick, at finding the lineup that works and sticking with it, right? For Nebraska, it was really that lineup of Lawrence, Hoiberg, Jacobson, Sanford, and Mass that was making some hay, especially down the stretch. And when Rutgers is pressing, that's going to be the lineup that they go to. That's their best ball handling lineup. Maybe you'd want Frager in there because he's a pretty darn good free throw shooter, especially for a freshman. But the beautiful thing about how Fred Hoiberg has managed his rotation is that Nebraska is deep enough, right? He was playing 9-10 guys early in the year, and that naturally whittles down to the guys that you can trust by the time you get into conference play. And then where Nebraska's at, just after the midway point of conference play, depth, I think, when most people talk about it is, well, you got to have 10 guys that are ready to go at a moment's notice. Really good depth is 7 guys that you can trust, and 8 that you can throw out there, and a 9th break glass in case of emergency sort of option by the time you get to conference play.
Yeah, and like you said, it seems like Illinois are running a 7-man rotation. Teams like Ohio State have been running a 7-man rotation. That's just how it's going to be. And we and Tristan were on earlier around 11 o'clock. We talked I don't think you switch it up now. You're 20. You've won 20 games for a reason, and you kind of stick with what's going right now. Frager is that spark off the bench. Cale Jacobson is going to be the guy who's going to dive on a loose ball no matter where you're at on the court. If you're flying out of bounds, he's going to fly, 5 or 6 rows deep to get a loose ball. That's kind of what his motto's been and what he's been doing. Will he score 10 points a night? No, but his stats will not show up in the stat book, and that's what the role he's going to play. And then obviously you have your starters who are going to be doing their own thing, and especially when you have a guy like Reek Mast who's going to put together this. I saw a stat that this is the first time he's taken 10-plus 2-point field goals since 2024, February of 2024 at Illinois. The first time he's done that. So, I mean, if he's back doing that, Nebraska's going to be a tough team to beat because this just adds another layer to their offense, and it just makes the team more dynamic because it's something you've been looking for.
Big thanks to Union Bank and Trust for being one of the sponsors of our post-game show. You can get a great rate on 6, 12, or 24-month CD with Union Bank and Trust. Learn more at ubt.com. Let's go back to YouTube. Sue93NE says only 3 road games left. Important point to bring up because, yes, of Nebraska's remaining games, they have road trips to Iowa. That'll be in 10 days, a Tuesday night game there in Carver Hawkeye. And then, Nick, they have the West Coast road swing, this time the California trip. It'll be at USC on February 28th, so 3 weeks from today. And then March 3rd, 3 weeks from Tuesday, Nebraska will be at UCLA. Other than that, Nebraska is home for the remainder of the schedule. And that's why I kept pushing back on people saying Nebraska hadn't played anybody. Who did Nebraska beat? What was their resume? Especially early in conference play, because we know teams do a home and away with that kind of pre-Christmas stretch of the 2 conference games. Nebraska went and won at Illinois. Yeah, they open up after the break at home against Michigan State, but then they get 3 out of 4 on the road. They win at Ohio State, at Indiana. They get a home win over Oregon, and then they win at Northwestern. So if you break it down into those 10-game stretches, Nebraska had 6 conference games on the road out of the first 10, and then it will only be 4, including today, on the road in the back half, which I think is, relatively enviable. All things considered, Nebraska will go home, away, home, away, and home to end the year. I think you like to be at home, right? Save some legs toward the end of the year. And for Nebraska, travel is maybe less of an issue being in the middle of the country, right? The trips aren't as bad as if you are, for example, a Rutgers or a UCLA or USC or anyone on either coast. But to be able to have, 3 road games left on the schedule is all, and you'll have a couple weeks or a week and a half of break between them. I think the schedule continues to set up pretty well for a Nebraska run down the stretch.
Exactly. Like you said, they had the midweek break this week, play at Rutgers, get that road trip out of the way out there to Piscataway, come back home, you host number 12 Purdue, and then you get Northwestern again. And the road trip to Iowa, that's not a crazy trip. No. Iowa State is just right there, playing in your backyard essentially. You have that road game. Come back home, Penn State, Maryland, on Saturday, Wednesday there at the end of February. And then you make the little West Coast trip, which it's a little different, obviously, a little adjusting time zone difference.
Nebraska swept it last year, road wins at Oregon and Washington.
Exactly. But now you get the other two newbies to the conference. Well, newbies, I say. They've been in the conference for a couple of years now, but it's just a little different too with conference realignment. You get the UCLA trip, and then you come back and you get the rivals in Iowa to close out the year. And then you turn the page to a new season, which is the Big Ten tournament, which will be a fun time in general, just because you faced all these teams. You're going to see how it all stacks out. And to mention, we talked about Nebraska being a 2 seed. I with how college basketball has gone the last 72 hours, I would say Nebraska has a pretty good case to be a 2 seed because of what happened with Gonzaga, what happened with UConn last night. UConn falling to St. John's. St. John's, arguably another one of the hot teams, kind of like Illinois. But a team like Gonzaga, Nebraska needed a team like them to slip up. And recent years, Gonzaga hasn't been prone to do that, but they lose to Portland. Iowa State has a lot of games on their schedule. Houston's playing tonight against BYU. Duke's got North Carolina. There's a lot of basketball to be played, and Nebraska's controlled what they can control. And
they're in control of their own destiny,
exactly,
which is the important piece for a team like this. And a big way that Nebraska's in control of its own destiny, Nick, is what Captain Cody says. 6 road wins is a feat in the Big Ten. Doesn't matter what teams you're playing. 2 years ago, Nebraska couldn't buy a road win in the conference. Captain Cody, that's a great talking point that was on my list. We can hit it now. 6 road wins in conference is a school record. Nebraska had gotten 5 a few times, but with their 6th road win, that's a new school record in terms of conference games. You think back, like Captain Cody said, to 2 seasons ago, that Keisei Tamanaga-led team that ended up making the tournament as the 8th seed. They were still looking for their first Big Ten conference road win when they went to Indiana. And now they won that game. But previously that season, Nebraska had lost at Wisconsin big, lost big at Iowa, lost to Rutgers in overtime a couple years ago, lost big at Maryland, lost close in overtime at Illinois. That game you mentioned with Rink Mast, I think, with the 10 2-point field goals.
That is the one.
Lost by a 12 at Northwestern. And then I think that was the Northwestern game was the one that Nebraska started making some lineup changes, went with the double bigs more consistently with Alec and Mast at that point. And then Nebraska, in late February 21st was their first road win. They won it 85-70 at Indiana. They only have 2 more road games the rest of the way. They lost on the road at Ohio State and then finished the regular season on the road at Michigan, that really bad Michigan team. But it took them until late February to get 1 road win, and that was a tournament team. You can see the growth of this team, the growth of this program. And Fred Hoiberg said it earlier in the year, boys win at home, men win on the road. The value of getting old, the value of going through college basketball, the value of, playing together and working together like Nebraska has is really paying dividends for this team. It's hard to win conference games on the road, like Captain Cody said. Even, one of Nebraska's better teams in recent memory couldn't find a way to do it and really struggled to even keep it close on the road. But a way that you continue to play your way up the seeding lines and keep yourself in these high-level discussions is to go on the road and win. And there's not an insurmountable task left on the road schedule for Nebraska.
And we have 88907 says, don't know what people are watching. Haven't played anybody. They're in the Big Ten, arguably one of the better conferences, if not the best conference this year. It's up there. I mean, they have so many ranked teams. Nebraska's already kind of seen the beef of the conference outside of Purdue. Played Michigan State, played Illinois, played Michigan. You played kind of the beef of the conference outside of Purdue, which is fastly approaching here in the coming week on Tuesday. But yeah, the Big Ten, any Big Ten win on the road is tough. It's, Rutgers obviously coming in. They've had some close losses. That one game goes to overtime. They've also gotten beat by UCLA on the road and gotten blown out. They made that trip from Piscataway all the way to UCLA, and they suffered a loss. But it's a conference where not every game's a given. You have to come ready to play, ready to show up, and Nebraska did that. And it was it close for about 10 minutes in the first half? Yes, but Nebraska used a little bit of run to kind of put together an 8+ point lead and then kind of held on from there. And like I said, it kind of reminded me of that Washington game where it wasn't like an Oregon where it was over before halftime, but they were able to just gather momentum and could carry that throughout the rest of the game and throughout the rest of the stretch.
Well, that's kind of Nebraska's MO, right? Use that first 10 minutes kind of as that feeling out process, see what's working for you, see what other teams like to do, and then find a way to adjust to it and adapt. Don't forget 402-464-5685. If you have anything on your mind, you can also drop a comment on our YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook streams. Bruce says, you play the teams that are on your schedule, so I don't care if anyone is saying that Nebraska hasn't played anyone. And Bruce also points out Gonzaga, they're in a conference that week. They shouldn't be over Nebraska, just saying. Here's the other thing that Nebraska is going to fight, though, that name reputation, that name brand. You remove the logos, you remove the letters and the school colors, and just look at a resume. Nebraska is going to stack up against anyone, and that's really all that Nebraska can hang its head on. Let's go ahead and take our first break of the show. Big thanks to John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electrical for helping sponsor Postgame. They're proudly serving the Lincoln, Omaha, and surrounding areas. John Henry's can assist you with any service like electrical maintenance, installation, or repair. They just looked at my furnace recently, so shout out the good folks at John Henry. We gave them a call at 402-809-1159. You can also schedule an appointment at jhlincoln.com. He's Nick Wyman. I'm Austin Norman. More Husker Hoops postgame after this.
There are so many realtors in Lincoln and Omaha, but don't get overwhelmed by all the no-names, plus all the different companies. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Real Estate is your go-to option, whether buying or selling residential, luxury, leasing, investment properties, or commercial property, small or large. Ben's team offers decades of experience, unbeatable customer service, and promises to fully protect your interests throughout the entire transaction. Call 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of BHHS Ambassador Real Estate.
Gentlemen, are you ready for something beyond the ordinary haircut? At Scissors & Scotch Lincoln, they blend your old school barber feel with your favorite watering hole. Sink into a comfy chair, unwind with a complimentary drink, and let their master barbers handle the rest. It's not just grooming, it's an experience. Whether you're prepping for a big meeting, needing to get cleaned up before family comes to town, or just need a little time to yourself, Scissors & Scotch Lincoln delivers sharp style every time. Book now at Scissors & Scotch in Lincoln, just south of 30th and Yankee Hill Road.
At Raising Cane's, we focus on making the most craveable chicken finger meals, getting them right every time. That's why we hand batter every chicken finger, mix every cane sauce, butter every Texas toast, stir every slaw, salt every fry, squeeze every lemon, and brew every ounce. We do this inside every Raising Cane's, every day, because when you do it right, you can taste it in every bite. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love.
A membership with John Henry's will fast track you to front of the line service, seasonal tune-ups, and far fewer unexpected moments. That means no breakdowns, no waiting on a call, and no nonsense. It's consistent care that prevents small issues from turning into big bills. Join the Comfort Club and get VIP treatment 365 days a year with 24-hour priority response, member-only discounts, and peace of mind on your home's most expensive systems. Call John Henry's.
John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
And electrical.
All right, Lincoln, if you're a diesel technician who's ready to earn up to $40 an hour and you're tired of working nights and weekends, listen up. Inland Truck Parts and Service is hiring experienced diesel technicians right here in Lincoln, and they're offering what every hardworking tech wants. Monday through Friday hours, no nights, no weekends, and paid training on advanced diesel technology. With 37 locations across 12 states, career advancement opportunities are endless. Start building towards your future and apply today at inlandtruck.com. That's inlandtruck.com. Or text APPLY to 785-369-1320.
Have you been looking for home technology upgrades but don't know where to turn? Online information can be contradicting and confusing. Lincoln's own experts at Diode Technologies can turn your living room into the place to watch your favorite sports. Whatever your vision is, Diode Tech is ready to make it a reality. From home theaters to outdoor entertainment spaces, they bring you along through the entire process to make sure you get exactly what you want. If you're ready to upgrade your entertainment space, visit Diode Tech online at diodetech.net or give them a call at 402-793-5124.
Let's fly. Your next trip starts at Lincoln Airport with American Airlines, now flying nonstop service to Dallas, Fort Worth, and Chicago. American Airlines connects Lincoln to major hubs and destinations around the globe. Wherever you're headed, LNK gets you there with new nonstop flights on American Airlines.
Now boarding.
Convenient, fast, and stress-free. Book your next flight at LincolnAirport.com. LNK, make flying easy.
With UBT, you've got total control over your money. Like Doug, who runs his game day tailgate like a well-oiled machine.
I got burgers, brats, chicken, dogs, plus all the fixins. And with the UBT Go app, I can track my food spending from anywhere.
Pro move.
They don't call me Grill Sergeant for nothing.
No matter your goals, UBT helps you feel good about reaching them. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Eustis Body Shop started as a single shop in Eustis in 1979. Since then, we've been getting Nebraskans back on the road. We treat our customers right and have never forgotten our roots, even as we've grown to 8 locations across the state. That's why Eustis Body Shop works hard to ensure our customer safety and offers free loaner cars to keep you moving. Eustis Body Shop, where our customers send their friends.
The most recommended Eustis Body Shop. That's who we are.
Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services is here to help you protect things that are most important to you. Whether it's your home, your family, or your future, Jack Russell has the proven experience to get the job done while developing authentic relationships with you. Give Jack a call today at 402-421-9100. Again, that's 402-421-9100. Or visit one of his 2 locations in Lincoln or Seward and learn how you can excel in the complicated world of insurance. Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services, a trusted and well-respected representative since 1999.
Now back to the post-game post-up on 93.7 The Ticket. Post-game coverage of Nebraska basketball on The Ticket is sponsored by Union Bank and Trust, the Lincoln Airport, Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services, and John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electrical. It's the post-game post-up on 93.7 The Ticket.
Welcome back in Nebraska men's basketball post-game. Moss Norman, Nick Wyman with you. American Airlines is back at the Lincoln Airport, bringing new nonstop flights from Lincoln to Dallas, Fort Worth, and Chicago O'Hare starting in June of 2026, with seasonal winter service to Phoenix starting in winter of 2026. Tickets are on sale now. 402-464-5685. Let us know your thoughts on Nebraska men's basketball's 80-68 win over Rutgers. Appreciate 8907 chiming in from California. Really appreciate you listening out there. Nebraska will be out your way here at the end of this month and to start March. You're right, USC, UCLA. I wouldn't even call them sneaky games. They're good teams. They're solid teams, but Nebraska ought to be favored going on the road for those. Nick, the things that stood out to me again from this Nebraska win over Rutgers, will start on the offensive end. The balance. 4 players in double figures. You have Rink Mast leading the way with 26 points, Price Sanford with 15, DeMarcus Lawrence with 12, and Sam Hoiberg with 13. Important to note as well, the balance, right? Rink Mast, 13 in the first, and 13 then in the second. You look at Price Sanford, 15 on the game, 7 in the first, then 8 in the second. DeMarcus Lawrence, 8 in the first, 4 in the second. Sam Hoiberg, 7 in the first half, and 6 in the second half. That's important to note, because we've seen Nebraska have those boom or bust halves, right? Where 1 or 2 guys are really getting it going and Nebraska's out to a lead, and then things dry up. No one else has the rhythm. No one else has been looked to on the offensive end of things. We saw that at times against Michigan. We saw that at times against Illinois, where if those 2 teams could take one of Nebraska's top 2 options that day away, other guys weren't necessarily stepping up, right? I think about the DeMarcus Lawrence, 16 or 18 points in the first half against Michigan, and then only had, I think, 2 in the second half, and it came late, but there were opportunities for him to step up. Price Sanford ends up shooting pretty well from 3. I think he ended up 3 of 9 on the day. Missed a couple open ones that I'm sure he would like back, but they were absolutely the right looks. It would have been great, if you get 15 points from one of those guys in a half. But I think this consistency from Nebraska, where they score 41 points in the first and 39 points in the second half of the game, it's that consistency that I think goes a long way. We know Nebraska has the spurt ability, right? The ability to go on runs, and they have guys that can get hot in a hurry, and that's important. But I think it's just as important for Nebraska to find ways to be balanced offensively, where you have 4 guys in double figures. And I think especially there when Rutgers made its run, trying to get it to 10 or 12 points, Nebraska went to Rink Mast in those moments. That's where I could tell I think he was back to being himself, because when Nebraska needed him to kind of keep Rutgers at bay, they went right to him, but it was other guys at different points throughout the game.
We got Sue93, and he says, love that Mast is finally back to himself, and the rest of the team is feeding off him. Feeding off that as well. Justin from Hickman says, great win. Good to see Mast have a big day, starting to build momentum back to make a nice little run to end the regular season. Yeah, I mean, that's Rink Mast. When he's able to play like that, it just makes things easier for everybody else. And guys, and there's not a one guy or two guys have to carry the load, which we kind of saw with the Illinois game. When you add Rink Mast in there, it adds another dimension. You have a body in the paint. He's making those hook shots, 11 of 20 from the floor. He's being consistent. He's a big body down there. He's getting back, get his legs underneath him after that ER trip and sickness and all that jazz. But yeah, Nebraska, look at the team stats as well. Like Rutgers shot a better field goal percentage for Nebraska. 3-point percentage, 33 to 32. Nebraska in the free throws is where they really took advantage. 11 to 12 from the free throw line, 92%. Illinois only 58% from the line. So you got to make those free throws count.
It was Rutgers today.
Hey, we got to make those free throws. Get right, get back into it, get your legs back under you. You got a couple days off of rest. Get back into it. Take a nice win back from the East Coast and get ready for the next one. So yes, everybody's kind of falling in line. You have Rink Mast back doing his thing, and that's just basically the big takeaway from today's game.
Sue93 also says Nebraska has to be able to defend better in the middle than they did today. That's not a big concern for me. Nebraska's been so good at preventing teams from getting to the middle that sure, there were some leaks here and there, but I mean, points in the paint, Nebraska still, outscored Rutgers there by 12 points. It was 36 to 24. Rutgers, let me pull up their stats as well. I said Nebraska was 12 of 20 on layups. No dunks for Nebraska today. Rutgers was just 6 of 8 on layups and dunks. So yeah, Rutgers did what Fred Hoiberg said they were going to. They were going to hit some tough ones from the mid-range. Nebraska helped them out with a couple fouls at times, fouling jump shooters, which is obviously not what you're going for. But if you only allow 7 attempts at the rim for layups and 1 dunk throughout the course of 40 minutes, if a team's only getting that close to the bucket once every 5 minutes, you can live with that, especially when you get there yourself about 2.5 times as often. I do want to mention that Rink Mast point again. And Raph, shout out. We'll appreciate you chiming in. We'll get to your question here in just a second. But that, to me, the biggest thing for Rink Mast was that stretch there in the middle, late part of the second half, where Nebraska would go to him in the post. I still don't think Rink Mast has the deepest bag of tricks, right? He went to that same, fake over his right shoulder, get back over his left shoulder kind of hook shot. And he hit a few of them. His touch had been off on that for a few weeks, even a little bit before the sickness, but especially, as he was dealing with that and trying to find his legs working back through it. 3-point numbers, just 1 of 4 on the day, continuing a cold stretch from downtown. But Rink Mast has enough in his bag, and he's consistent enough creating his own offense in the post. Might not look pretty, might not be teach tape, but he's got the touch, he's got the angles. In Nebraska, being able to feed Rink Mast in the post every so often, especially against a team like Rutgers that isn't a high 3-point volume team, sometimes you just got to get 2 points on the board. Nebraska can go to that Rink Mast post up, or even sometimes that Jamarcus Lawrence mid-range game. Today it was the Rink Mast post up, and it worked like a charm for Nebraska for about 4 or 5 possessions in a row until other guys got going and Nebraska's defense got back on kilter.
And that's what they had to do, and just escape with a win. Any conference game is a good win. Raph chimes in and says, hey guys, his question is, Sam Hoiberg, does Sam Hoiberg...
Hey, say the other part too. We know what Raph is about.
Raph says, I'm have my victory cigar lit up here in Bama, Alabama, listening. Sorry, Raph, I tried to get you out of there. But his question is, does Sam Hoiberg deserve all Big Ten first or second team consideration? I'll pose that question to you, Austin.
Yeah, no, he certainly deserves it. Whether or not he will get it is a completely different equation, right? I think that Rink Mast and Price Sanford get so many headlines that when Nebraska has an all-conference player, it will likely be one of those two. I was a little surprised to see Sam Hoiberg left off the Defensive Player of the Year watch list. That, to me, was a bit of a slap in the face to the work that Sam Hoiberg has done. But for a guy like Sam Hoiberg, the steps he's taken, the leaps he's made in his career, still a low-usage offensive player, but certainly making the most of his opportunities. He's shooting 64% from 2. He's shooting 41% from 3 on 58 tries, which is just incredible. And only taking 35 free throws this year, knocking him down at a 71% rate. But he means so much to Nebraska. His counting stats have certainly ticked up, but you have to think that when you think about the lead guard kind of point guard conversation, you're going to look at Braden Smith, you're going to look at Keaton Wagler. You're going to look at Bruce Thornton as, I think, a neutral voter looking in on this conversation. And then are you thinking that Price Sanford can sneak onto the first team as a wing, or is he your second team rep, is Rink Master, second team center? I think Sam Hoiberg is having, very clearly far and away the best season of his career at this point. And there's really no arguing that. Is it good enough to be first or second team all Big Ten? In our hearts, absolutely. Whether or not, he deserves it is one thing. Will he get it? I wouldn't predict it. But whether or not he earns all Big Ten honors, which I'm sure he will in some form or fashion, if it's second team or honorable mention, I would say are most likely. We understand, Nick, how much Sam Hoiberg means to this Nebraska team. And of all the guys, he's probably been the most consistent of showing that value in some way, shape, or form, night in and night out.
It's not going to show in the points some nights. Some nights he'll score, 5 points. Some nights he'll score 10 points. But you'll get the steals. You'll get the box outs that matter. The offensive rebounds from time to time. He'll do the little things that make an impact on sequences that will help Nebraska in scoring in some facet. Another question, interesting question. 8907 says, do you think Nebraska doesn't get a lot of love because they don't jump off the page athletically compared to teams like Houston, Arizona, etc.?
I mean, that's... So Jay Foreman and I had this conversation on Old School, and it's true, right? Fred Hoiberg will admit as much. He did, in fact, right before Michigan State, where he said if we lined up both teams on the baseline, we might have guys at half court before Cohen Carr gets to the opposite baseline, right? We know that, the athleticism in terms of your straight line speed or your high flying ability doesn't necessarily jump off of the page. But I think what we're learning, the more and more sports science and sports data that we have, is, it takes an athlete to be as in shape as Price Sanford. How many guys are running the miles that he does, right? And Price can jump enough to dunk. We've seen that at times, right? We've seen Price Sanford be able to stop on a dime. And that's the important part too, I think. I go back to a play that we highlighted on a Whiteboard Wednesday against Oregon. Everyone's flying down court in transition. Price Sanford is able to get to his spot, stop his momentum, and then rise up into what was a contested three-pointer at one point, but became an open three-pointer because Price Sanford was able to decelerate so much quicker, right? The deceleration is what you look at from the NBA terms, in terms of like a James Harden, right? A Luka Doncic, a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all of whom have their other athletic gifts. But I think athleticism in the traditional sense that I think 8907 is referring to it, no, Nebraska is really not the highest flying in-game, right, outside of a guy like Braden Frager. No, Nebraska isn't, John Wall or, Jeremy Fears or Donovan Dent when it comes down to getting the ball down the court in a hurry, just outrunning guys. But Nebraska is athletic enough to make it work. They're competitive, and they're usually in good position. And that, to me, Nick, is how Nebraska's athleticism in the traditional sense plays up a little bit because of good positioning, because of good communication. When they're in the right spots on time, Nebraska's really not getting out-athleted. You really only see that occasionally in transition. I wouldn't even say Illinois out-athleted Nebraska. They were just taller for the most part at times. Yes. But no, I mean, I think that there's some of that can be true, but I also don't want to diminish what Nebraska's athletic gifts are, even if they look a little different maybe than some of those teams you mentioned, 8907.
Yeah, and some of those teams you mentioned have guys who are going to be picked probably in the lottery during the NBA draft, probably in the first round. Nebraska, probably not at the time, but a lot can change. You never know. Mm-hmm. You never know how scouts view them. But I think that's also where people think of the athleticism stuff. You see teams like your Arizonas, your UConns, Michigan, Illinois, Houston. I could go on and on. Those are teams that have a guy that is going to be drafted to the next level on the first day of the draft, because the draft is now 2 days. Kind of weird, but that's what it is. It's a 2-day draft. Nebraska right now doesn't have a guy who's going to be top of the country, top 15 pick right off the bat. But I don't think that defines a team. Just because you have a guy, athletically gifted better doesn't mean that makes you the team more impressive, I guess. But Nebraska's 21-2 for a reason, and it's not just because of athleticism. I think it's just because complementary basketball, guys are stepping up when need to. You've had some good finishes that have been able to fall your way. Illinois, K-State, Oklahoma game even too. Oklahoma game was really fun. A lot of high scoring. Yeah. They've been able to win games in different ways and different facets, and I think that's what makes complementary basketball fun about this team. Because
to that point, I want to get to this from Captain Cody again on YouTube. Don't forget, this is your show, 402-464 5685. Please chime in. We love hearing from you. You can also leave those comments on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Captain Cody says, as of this game, Price Sanford leads the Big Ten in made threes for the year. But I want to get to this one that he just sent in as well. Sam Hoiberg is the identity of this team. This team had no culture before Sam joined the program. Every Big Ten coach speaks super highly of him. If he didn't get postseason honors, it would be a huge snub. I will push back on it being a huge snub. It would hurt. It would sting, but it would also be somewhat understandable, right? It's just how it goes, right? Fair or not, the eye test is a part of it. The narrative is a part of it. And I think Sam Hoiberg is certainly in the discussion. That would be an incredible honor for him to receive some postseason accolades in some form or fashion. Not that Nebraska is going to worry about that right now. It's still, what would that be? 7 conference games to go.
Yep.
I believe would be if the Huskers now at 11-2 in the Big Ten. But saying Sam Hoiberg is the identity of the team in some aspects. So that's what I think makes this Nebraska team so fun to cheer for and to watch, Nick, is that you can say that Sam Hoiberg embodies the toughness, the grit, the scrappiness, the competitiveness, the kind of coming out of nowhere aspect, kind of like this Nebraska program did starting 3.5 years ago. You could say that if Nebraska's identity is the ability to go on runs, right? Those kill shots that we talk about quite a bit. Nebraska is among the best in the country at finding ways to go on runs. And who embodies that ability for Nebraska? To me, it's Price Sanford and Braden Frager. The ability to provide that pop at a moment's notice. That's a piece of Nebraska's identity that you have to, I think, give the nod to those two guys. And another important piece of the identity would be Rink Mass, right? The fact they're able to run a modern offense. So they have every trick in the bag because they have a playmaking stretch big man that can do that. You can also say Nebraska's identity is, they're a bigger team, right? That wants to control tempo. That's Jamarcus Lawrence and Cale Jacobson controlling the tempo. That's Berke Buchtengel, helping Nebraska clean up on the glass. So I understand, I think, what you're trying to say there, Captain Cody, but Nebraska isn't a team that I think you can pin its identity down to one thing. I think there are so many different aspects of this team that different players embody, and the fact that they all work together so well has melded into this now 21-2 Nebraska men's basketball team.
And yeah, that's what
21-2.
21-2, you are correct. That's what makes them so
10-2 in the conference.
Yep, there you go. That's what makes it difficult for opposing teams to scout these teams and be able to game plan for them, because you look at, most teams have the guy. You think of Nebraska, name me, Price Sanford a couple weeks ago, he was the guy because he scored, 70 some points in 3 games or whatever. So it's like, okay, he's the guy to zoom in on. He's the hot hand. But just like that, he can score 15 points while Rink Mass can take over and score 25 points. And then you add in what Buchtengel can do. You can add in what Sam Hoiberg can do in the dirty work. Cale Jacobson, Braden Frager scoring 20 against Illinois. There's just so many different guys who can say, I want the ball in this situation and I'm going to make a play.
I have the matchup.
Yep.
It's my turn.
Exactly. That's what makes Nebraska so difficult to game plan against. I mean, Wisconsin began the year. All these coaches have spoke so highly about this Nebraska team. Even before the season, BYU, when they came here for the exhibition games, like, yeah, this is going to be a tournament team. Porter Moser at Oklahoma. Yeah, this is going to be a tournament team. They saw the vision before a lot of people did. And look at it now, 21-2. It's not a mistake that they're 21-2.
No. And 10-2 in the Big Ten Conference, with their only 2 losses being to a pair of the top 5 teams in the country as it sits right now. Big thanks to Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services. He's been with them since, I believe, 1998. Give Jack and his team a call today for help with anything you need when it comes to insurance. 8907, we see you have another text. We'll get to that after we take our final break of the show.
Let's fly. Your next trip starts at Lincoln Airport with American Airlines. Now flying nonstop service to Dallas, Fort Worth, and Chicago. American Airlines connects Lincoln to major hubs and destinations around the globe. Wherever you're headed, LNK gets you there with new nonstop flights on American Airlines.
Now boarding.
Convenient, fast, and stress-free. Book your next flight at LincolnAirport.com. LNK, make flying easy.
Have you been looking for home technology upgrades but don't know where to turn? Online information can be contradicting and confusing. Lincoln's own experts at Diode Technologies can turn your living room into the place to watch your favorite sports. Whatever your vision is, Diode Tech is ready to make it a reality. From home theaters to outdoor entertainment spaces, they bring you along through the entire process to make sure you get exactly what you want. If you're ready to upgrade your entertainment space, visit Diode online at diodetech.net or give them a call at 402-793-5124. There are so many realtors in Lincoln and Omaha, but don't get overwhelmed by all the no-names, plus all the different companies. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Real Estate is your go-to option, whether buying or selling residential, luxury, leasing, investment properties, or commercial property, small or large. Ben's team offers decades of experience, unbeatable customer service, and promises to fully protect your interests throughout the entire transaction. Call 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group of BHHS Ambassador Real Estate.
Gentlemen, are you ready for something beyond the ordinary haircut? At Scissors and Scotch Lincoln, they blend your old school barber feel with your favorite watering hole. Sink into a comfy chair, unwind with a complimentary drink, and let their master barbers handle the rest. It's not just grooming, it's an experience. Whether you're prepping for a big meeting, needing to get cleaned up before family comes to town, or just need a little time to yourself, Scissors and Scotch Lincoln delivers sharp style every time. Book now at Scissors and Scotch in Lincoln, just south of 30th and Yankee Hill Road.
It's the two-fingered wave on a gravel road. It's letting the kids take dad's truck to prom. It's Friday nights under the lights of a hometown football field. Eustace Body Shop knows small towns. It's where our values are rooted. We treat our people right, and in turn, they treat you, our customer, right. And we give back to our communities. Not much more small town than that. Eustace Body Shop, small town service, big city technology.
The most recommended Eustace Body Shop. That's who we are.
With UBT, you've got total control over your money. Like Doug, who runs his game day tailgate like a well-oiled machine.
I got burgers, brats, chicken, dogs, plus all the fixins. And with the UBT Go app, I can track my food spending from anywhere.
Pro move.
They don't call me Grill Sergeant for nothing.
No matter your goals, UBT helps you feel good about reaching them. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Anderson Ford in Lincoln has 2 convenient locations, which means 2 times the customer service, 2 times the inventory, and 2 times the ability to get you in the car of your dreams. Whether you visit us on the north side or the south side, you'll find more selection and a team that's always on your side. When you're looking for a better way to buy your next Ford, visit Anderson Ford in Lincoln, where exceptional service meets unbeatable selection.
Want to make the easy call? Call John Henry's. From leaky pipes to a broken AC, flickering lights to furnace fights, even drains and duct cleaning, we've got it handled. Plumbing, heating, air, and electrical, all under one trusted roof. Proudly serving homes across Lincoln, Omaha, and surrounding areas, and ready 24/7. Visit calljh.com or call
John Henry's. 435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air,
and electrical.
Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services is here to help you protect things that are most important to you. Whether it's your home, your family, or your future, Jack Russell has the proven experience to get the job done while developing authentic relationships with you. Give Jack a call today at 402-421-9100. Again, that's 402-421-9100. Or visit one of his 2 locations in Lincoln or Seward and learn how you can excel in the complicated world of insurance. Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services, a trusted and well-respected representative since 1999.
Winter is just around the corner. Is your vehicle ready? Don't get left out in the cold. At A1 Automotive, we prep your car for whatever winter throws your way here in Nebraska. For battery checks, for brake inspections, tires, heaters, whatever your car needs to keep you and your family safe on the road, we've got you covered. A1 Automotive, always honest answers.
Now back to the post-game post-up on 93.7 The Ticket. Post-game coverage of Nebraska basketball on The Ticket is sponsored by Union Bank and Trust, the Lincoln Airport, Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services, and John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electrical. It's the post-game post-up on 93.7 The Ticket.
Welcome back in. One final time, Nebraska men's basketball postgame. Moss Norman, Nick Wyman, and you. 402-464-5685. Taking your thoughts all show long. Appreciate our YouTube comment section. You guys have been great all show as well. 80-68, Nebraska wins it. We'll get to 89-07 here on our starter Heyman Jewelers text line. Best athletes don't always win. There are so many other intangibles necessary to win. Nebraska is so hard to play and guard with 5 to 6 guys that can get a bucket for them. That's the other interesting part, I think, as we look at the schedule moving forward for Nebraska here, Nick, is obviously you're in conference play. You're familiar enough with a team, or a program, I should say. Teams know what Nebraska wants to do, what they want to accomplish it, but how each team goes about accomplishing that can be different year to year just based on the skill sets of the players that they have available. I think point in hand would be the Nebraska offense this year. Wanted to accomplish a lot of similar things. We're better able to do it to this point this season compared to last season, which is where your double plays are a big deal, right? Illinois was the first team to see Nebraska twice. Illinois was playing better. Illinois was plenty talented. They adjusted. They find a way to split that season series. Nebraska will get Northwestern again coming up, a team that will see them for the second time, but Nebraska won the road game out there just like they did with Illinois. And then Iowa. We'll see Nebraska twice here over the next month and a day, right? Really the next, 29 days now. So teams seeing Nebraska for a second time and Nebraska seeing teams for a second time, there are those kind of natural adjustments when it comes to seeing a team. But I think Nebraska, and the fact that it is so many guys that can beat any given team on any given night, does make Nebraska this year probably a harder scout than it was last year when it was, Bryce Williams is going to get his, maybe Juwan Gary, you have to limit him, and then a bunch of guys that were going to score, 4 to 8 points any given night, but couldn't really do much to hurt you. That just makes Nebraska such a tough cover this season.
Yeah, you look at the past couple of games. Rink Mass today, 26. Frager against Illinois, 20. And then you had Sanford on obviously his heater, probably the heater of the season, where he was lights out from 3-point range and just could not miss. He could have shot from the parking lot and it probably would have gone in. And then you have Lawrence with 27 against Indiana. Frager with 15 against Ohio State. Mass with 19 against Michigan State. And then back to Sanford. There's going to be for a stretch there for most of the season outside the mid-January to early February, basically, that Price Stanford wasn't the guy who's just the one guy leading them in scoring. It's a different guy every night, and that's what you're seeing now with Rink Mast, who had his return to form with 26.
26 and 8. That's a heck of a night. And Nebraska went to him inside quite a bit, also had the 2 assists. Shout out to Marcus Lawrence. He went for 12, also had 7 assists and 3 rebounds. Sam Hoiberg, 13.7 rebounds and 5 assists. But I bring that up about Nebraska's offense as well, because the Huskers assist on 19 of their 30 made field goals, essentially 2/3. Rutgers down at about 50% of their makes at 14 out of 27. You can just tell the difference with how crisp those two offenses were or weren't. Nebraska having those 5 players in motion, all 5 players touching the ball consistently, actions happening in the right time and at the right place, whether it was in the half court or baseline out of bounds especially, you can just tell the difference between kind of a stilted, janky, just trying to make it work offense, piece it together, rely on Tariq Francis for the most part in the first half offense like Rutgers, versus a Nebraska team where you have, 4 players with 12 or more points and everyone's touching the ball, on as many possessions as possible.
Yeah, Tariq Francis has been Rutgers' guy all year. He's been leading them in scoring. Got the start today. He's been coming off the bench mostly. So first half, Darren Buchanan Jr. kind of came in scoring. He's scoring about 8 points per game. Comes in, has that. He barely was noticeable in the second half. Nebraska was able to adjust, which I also think that's another thing that makes Nebraska so good as a team. Just they're able to adjust on the fly. You see it in the first 10 minutes, feeling out process, able to take advantage, build up a 41-27 lead at half. The second half adjustments, I think, has been a huge thing. And that's credit to not only Coach Hoiberg, but also the rest of that staff.
Well, and Zerno came out and was hitting from 3, helping Rutgers keep pace, but Francis had 2 points until I think the last, 5 minutes of the second half. Buchanan only shot it twice, did have 3 rebounds there in the second half in 16 minutes as well. Grant, 3 of his 7 points were at the free throw line. And so Nebraska, I think, did a good job of taking away that primary option there in Tariq Francis for a while. Let's go ahead and get to this from Justin and Hickman. I know you read it before. Beat Purdue and make a nice run to end the regular season. I think that's where all eyes are for this Nebraska team right now, Nick, because we know that Nebraska is in really good shape right now. I think the the resume has a chance to be bolstered quite a bit down the stretch. I mean, a road game at Iowa with where the Hawkeyes rank in the net has the chance to move the needle. We'll see how USC and UCLA are playing come the end of this month and the start of March. Those will probably be two hard-fought games between Nebraska and those West Coast schools. And then you get a second crack at Iowa. So I don't think that this is a situation where Nebraska's final seed hinges fully on the Purdue game. But to what you brought up before, if Nebraska is able to hold serve at home against a Purdue team that at last check trails by 1 at the U4 timeout in Mackey Arena against a 1-10 in the Big Ten Oregon team. If Nebraska is able to hold serve at home, that's another feather in the cap. I think Purdue's going to get it figured out. I keep waiting for them to get it figured out, especially defensively. They just haven't yet. But that's a notable win against a reputable opponent. And then you still have a few more chances to burnish that kind of lower quad 1, upper quad 2 resume with your Iowas, your USC and UCLA games as well. So I think that the great part of this for Nebraska is that you have a chance to bring some juice as Husker fans on Tuesday night against Purdue and get another, top 15 potential, home win for Nebraska, but that it's not the whole season hinges on this. If they don't get this one, everything they want to do in terms of seeding is out the window. No, there aren't opportunities like Purdue or like top 10 teams on the schedule after Tuesday, but there are still enough opportunities for Nebraska to reassert itself, be in the conversation, and pick up those nice kind of tidy up around the edges sorts of wins.
You're right. I mean, Purdue that's not the final test on the season. You have multiple conference games still left. And Purdue coming in, like you said, they're trailing Oregon right now. What's the score of that one?
It was 61-60 at last check at the second half U4.
Wow. Oregon coming on, playing tough up there.
Let's go ahead and just check out that Big Ten scoreboard. I was watching the end of that Wisconsin-Indiana game. Indiana wins it at Assembly Hall in overtime. In 5 minutes, there were 11 total points scored. Wisconsin came back from down 6 at half to force overtime. Maybe a bit of a bailout foul to put Lamar Wilkerson on the line. It certainly looked awkward, but he knocked down both free throws, and the Hoosiers win it 78-70 over Wisconsin. That Oregon-Purdue game has about 3.5 minutes to go. Like I said, it's 61-60 Ducks over the Boilers right now. 2 other games in the Big Ten yet tonight. You'll have Washington and UCLA as the nightcap. But the big one, Nick, and this is one where I think Nebraska is probably a fan of the Michigan State Spartans, is when they host number 5 Illinois. Illinois is playing, at a top 3 rate in the country right now. Michigan State scuffling a little bit, a game back of Nebraska at 9-3 in the Big Ten, and scuffle for their standards the way that they started the year. But I think Michigan State's a team looking for that signature win. They get a chance at it in the Breslin Center. And with Nebraska holding the tiebreaker over Michigan State, if the Spartans are going to play their way, back into that serious conversation to win the conference, they need this one. And if they win it, then Nebraska would hold tiebreaker over them.
It's a very odd look around the conference because you have Purdue, who's lost 3 of their last 4 games, lost to UCLA, lost to Illinois, lost to Indiana, and then Maryland, and then what's going on down right now against Oregon, who's a score that's very surprising to look at. But as we know in college basketball this week, you cannot decide the games on the spreadsheet. You decide them on the court. I'm looking at you, Gonzaga. I'm looking at you, BYU, and I'm looking at you, Michigan State.
Shout out Tristan Gomez's Portland Pilots one final time.
Yep,
by the way.
There we go. I mean, that's the story of the week. But also, you look at Illinois, one of the hottest teams in the nation. You said top 3. I mean, I'd maybe top 2 right now. I mean, they're rolling. I mean, UConn lost yesterday to St. John's, and then you have Michigan, who's kind of treading water there in the top 5, and then Michigan State is a team who's trying to get back on rhythm. I guess they lose to Minnesota, and fears all that situation with Tom Izzo and all that's going down, and now they have a marquee game again. Illinois is trying to beat a top ranked opponent on the road for the 3rd consecutive weekend. There's a lot going on, a lot of different moving parts in the Big Ten, and Nebraska has their cheering interest in the conference, but also the nation. There's also Duke, North Carolina tonight. There's that one too. You have Houston and BYU. There are a lot of different factors, and there's still 4 to 5 weeks left in the regular season. So there's a lot of room. The Purdue game does not define your season. Like you said, those games, those USC, UCLA games, those are no slouches. Those are 2 solid programs. They've been able to hang with a lot of really good teams. So there's still a lot of beef left in the resume to be built.
Bruce Davis, appreciate you chiming in a couple final times on YouTube. Big thanks to everyone who hung out with us over the course of the last hour. Big thanks to everyone on our starter Heyman Jewelers text line. And of course, our 4 great sponsors, Union Bank and Trust, John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electrical, the Lincoln Airport, and Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services. Husker tennis is off to a couple of good starts. Husker softball about an hour and a half away. Rematch against number 1 Texas. Bit of a barn burner going on last night. But at the half down at Pinnacle Bank Arena, it is the Maryland Terrapins leading Nebraska 45-28. Huskers trailed by 4 after the first quarter, but a 30-point second quarter for the Terps. They outscore Nebraska 30-17. Been a choppy game for Nebraska. Turned it over 15 times in the first half, led to 13 points off turnovers from the Terps. Nebraska also allowed 11 offensive rebounds and 8 second chance points. That'll do it for us here for Nebraska men's basketball postgame. Once again, it's Rink Mass leading the way, 26 points for him as Nebraska wins it 80-68. Thanks to our 4 great sponsors. Thanks to you for hanging out. For Nick Wyman, I'm Austin Norman. We'll talk again soon.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool.